Picture this: you've just made it big in the world of sports. You've got millions of dollars in the bank, you're living the dream, and everything seems perfect. But then, a person comes into your life who you think you can trust. They say they're an expert, someone who can manage your money and make sure you never have to worry about anything. What could go wrong, right? Well, in the case of several famous athletes, it was about to go very, very wrong. This is the story of Peggy Fulford, an ambitious woman who took advantage of her connections and the trust of others to steal millions of dollars from some of the biggest names in sports, including Dennis Rodman and Ricky Williams. You won't believe how far she went to make sure no one ever saw it coming. Peggy Fulford grew up in New Orleans, a city full of good food and culture. But even though the city was fun and full of life, most people there didn't have a lot of money. Peggy's family didn't have much either. From a young age, Peggy didn't want to live a normal life. She wanted to be rich, really rich. She wanted to buy anything she wanted, wear fancy clothes, and live in a big, beautiful house. But Peggy didn't just want money. She wanted to be the boss. She wanted people to look at her and be impressed. Some people work hard and save their money to reach their goals. But Peggy didn't care how she got rich. She was ready to lie, cheat, and trick people if that's what it took. For her, the only thing that mattered was getting what she wanted, and getting it fast. In the 1990s, Peggy saw a chance she couldn't ignore. A young man she knew, named Travis, had just been picked to play in the NBA. He had signed a big contract that would pay him millions of dollars, more money than Peggy had ever seen in her life. To her, it felt like winning the lottery, even though the money wasn't hers. As soon as she heard the news, her thoughts started racing. Peggy didn't waste time feeling happy for Travis. Instead, she started thinking about how she could get close to that money. She wanted a part of it, and she was already planning how to make that happen. Travis was focused on living his dream. He had made it to the NBA, and everything in his life now revolved around basketball. He trained hard, traveled for games, and did his best to prove himself on the court. But while he was great with a basketball, he didn't know much about money. Managing contracts, bank accounts, and investments was all new to him and confusing. That's when Peggy stepped in. She saw his weakness and took full advantage of it. Peggy lied right to his face. She told him she had a law degree from Harvard and that she used to work on Wall Street helping rich people with their money. None of it was true, but she said it with such confidence that no one thought to double-check. She dressed the part, spoke with big words, and acted like she knew exactly what she was doing. People believed her. Travis believed her. So when Peggy came to him and said, "Let me handle your money. I'll take care of everything for you. You can just focus on basketball," it sounded like a good deal. He trusted her. And that's exactly what she wanted. Travis agreed to let Peggy handle his money. He was busy with games, training, and the fast pace of being a pro athlete, so it felt like a smart choice. Peggy acted confident and professional, and she seemed like someone who knew what she was doing. Why wouldn't he trust her? But Peggy never planned to help Travis. From the start, her goal was to take his money and use it for herself. She secretly opened a bank account in her name and began moving large amounts of Travis's money into it. She didn't waste time, she started spending right away. She went on shopping sprees, bought expensive clothes, shiny jewelry, and everything she had ever wanted. While she lived like a queen, Travis had no idea. He was too focused on his career to keep an eye on his finances. For 5 whole years, Peggy stole from him little by little, until the total added up to nearly $2 million. She lived in luxury, staying in fancy hotels and wearing the best brands, all paid for with money that wasn't hers. Meanwhile, Travis continued to trust her. But eventually, the truth came out. Travis learned that the person he had trusted with his money had been stealing from him all along. Angry and hurt, he fired Peggy right away. But instead of going to the media or the police, he kept the situation quiet. He didn't want the drama or the attention. That choice turned out to be a big mistake. By not warning others, Travis gave Peggy the chance to disappear and find her next victim. She walked away without punishment, and kept doing the same thing to more people. A few years later, around 2001, Peggy saw another door open. This time, it wasn't a friend from her past or someone she happened to know. This time, it was a connection to the NFL. Peggy had a friend who worked as an interior designer, and that friend had just started decorating the home of a young NFL rookie named Ricky Williams. As soon as Peggy heard his name, she knew it was her next big opportunity. She didn't waste a second. Peggy approached Ricky and gave him the same story she had used before. She told him she had a law degree from Harvard, that she used to work on Wall Street, and that she knew everything about managing money. Ricky, like many young athletes, was focused on his career. He had a lot on his plate with training, games, and adjusting to life as a pro football player. Managing money wasn't something he had time for, and Peggy sounded like someone who could help. She was confident, polished, and acted like a real financial expert. So Ricky thought, why not? He trusted her, just like Travis did. Once again, Peggy had full control. She started handling all of Ricky's finances, and just like before, she started stealing from him. She opened fake bank accounts, quietly moved his money around, and covered her tracks with tricks that made everything look normal on the surface. Ricky had no idea. While he focused on football, Peggy was behind the scenes, helping herself to the money he had worked so hard to earn. Over time, Peggy became more than just Ricky's financial advisor. She became part of his inner circle. She helped him plan his wedding, took his girlfriend to the hospital after she gave birth, and even moved to a new city when Ricky got traded to another team. Ricky trusted her completely. He thought she was a good friend, someone who truly had his best interests at heart. But while Peggy was busy looking like the perfect friend, she was still stealing from Ricky. He had no idea. By the mid-2000s, Peggy Fulford was no longer just some unknown woman claiming to know about money. She had built a reputation. People in the sports world had started to talk about her, saying she was the go-to person for financial help. Word spread that she had helped top athletes manage their wealth, and soon more and more clients came knocking. They believed in her because they heard good things from others who had worked with her, people who had no idea they were being scammed. Peggy used these fake success stories to build trust, and it worked. That's when she crossed paths with Dennis Rodman. Dennis was no ordinary player. He was a former NBA star, famous not just for his talent on the court, but also for his bold fashion, wild behavior, and headline-making lifestyle. By the time Peggy met him, Dennis had already retired from basketball, but he still had a lot of money in the bank. However, his life wasn't in great shape. He was drinking too much, struggling with personal problems, and his finances were all over the place. To someone like Peggy, this wasn't a red flag, it was the perfect setup. She saw Dennis's chaos as a way in. He was vulnerable, confused, and in need of help. And Peggy was ready to step in and take control. Peggy approached Dennis with the same routine she had used so many times before. She told him she had a Harvard law degree, claimed she had worked on Wall Street, and made it sound like she was the perfect person to take care of his money. Dennis, already overwhelmed by personal struggles and unsure of how to handle his finances, agreed. He was in a rough place emotionally and financially, and Peggy seemed like someone who genuinely wanted to help. Just like with Ricky, Peggy didn't just act like a financial expert, she acted like a friend. She stayed close to Dennis, supported him through his ups and downs, and even gave him advice about his drinking. She would talk to him like she cared, warning him when things were getting out of hand. Over time, Dennis began to truly believe she had his best interests at heart. He leaned on her more and more. So much so that when he was honored with an induction into the Basketball Hall of Fame, Dennis stood in front of the world and publicly thanked Peggy for all the support she had given him. But the truth was far from what it looked like. While Peggy was smiling beside him, pretending to be his loyal friend and financial guide, she was secretly draining his bank account. She was moving money into her own pockets, using her usual tricks to keep it hidden. Over the years, she stole more than $1 million from Dennis, all while keeping up the act that she was there to help. As Peggy continued to steal from the athletes she had manipulated, her life of luxury grew bigger and more extravagant. She bought a massive mansion and filled it with the finest furniture, making it look like a palace. Her closet overflowed with designer clothes, shoes, and handbags that she could barely keep track of. Her success was visible everywhere. She had a whole fleet of expensive cars, from sleek Bentleys to fast Maseratis, all parked in her driveway. Peggy wasn't even trying to hide the fact that she was living a lavish lifestyle. She flaunted it. At one point, she even managed to land a deal for a reality TV show called The Peggy Show. The show was meant to focus on Peggy as a financial advisor managing the wealth of professional athletes. Although the show never actually aired, it didn't matter. Peggy was already living the dream life she had always fantasized about. But while Peggy enjoyed her success, the cracks in her scheme were starting to show. Her luxurious lifestyle, paid for by the stolen money, was becoming harder to maintain without drawing attention. The lies, the stolen millions, and the manipulation were catching up to her, and it was only a matter of time before everything started to unravel. Everything changed for Peggy when Dennis Rodman noticed something unusual. One day, he realized that the power in his condo had been shut off. Confused, he asked his assistant to look into it. It turned out that his utility bills hadn't been paid in months, and his electricity wasn't the only thing being ignored. Many of his other bills were overdue as well. Dennis couldn't believe it. Peggy had been the one responsible for managing all of his finances. She was supposed to handle everything for him, but now, it seemed like she had let everything slip through the cracks. Dennis was shocked and felt betrayed. At the same time, Ricky Williams was hit with a financial bombshell of his own. He was slapped with a massive tax bill from the IRS, $450,000 that he owed. To make matters worse, his Range Rover was repossessed. Ricky and his wife were livid. They couldn't understand how things had gotten so bad so quickly. They tried reaching out to Peggy for answers, but she was nowhere to be found. All of their calls and emails went unanswered. Peggy had disappeared, leaving them to deal with the mess she had created. Then, another athlete's wife came forward with troubling news. Her husband's car had been repossessed, and when they tried to make a purchase at a store, their debit card was declined. When they looked into it, they found that Peggy had been managing their finances too. It didn't take long for the athletes to start connecting the dots. Peggy had been handling their money, and now, one by one, they were all facing financial trouble. Ricky's wife took it upon herself to dig deeper. She started looking into Peggy's background, asking questions and following the trail. What she uncovered was shocking. Peggy's story about attending Harvard and working on Wall Street? It was all a lie. She had never set foot in Harvard, and she had never worked on Wall Street. Peggy had created a false identity, built on deception, to gain the trust of these athletes and steal from them without anyone suspecting a thing. The truth was out now, and the damage was done. Ricky and his wife wasted no time. They filed a lawsuit against Peggy, accusing her of stealing millions of dollars from them. The case caught the attention of the public and made headlines in 2015, sparking a media frenzy. While reading through the sports section, an FBI agent stumbled upon the story. Intrigued, he thought to himself, "This sounds like a criminal case." So, he decided to take a closer look and began investigating. As the FBI dug deeper into Peggy's actions, they uncovered something truly shocking. Peggy had been hiding stolen money in over 85 secret bank accounts, each one designed to make it nearly impossible to trace the funds. What had started as a simple con, with one or two athletes, had grown into a massive and intricate web of deception. Peggy's scheme was far more complicated than anyone had ever realized. The extent of her theft was staggering, and it was clear that she had been getting away with it for years. Peggy's world was collapsing. Her famous clients, including Dennis Rodman and Ricky Williams, were suing her, and no one in the financial world wanted to have anything to do with her anymore. She found herself with no other choice but to file for bankruptcy. She had to sell off her fleet of expensive cars and give up her luxurious mansion. Dennis and Ricky, once her clients and allies, had completely cut ties with her. And on top of it all, the FBI was closing in fast. Eventually, the FBI showed up at Peggy's house, arrested her, and charged her with serious crimes, wire fraud and money laundering. Peggy denied everything, claiming she was innocent, but the evidence against her was undeniable. The stolen funds were traced, the fake accounts were uncovered, and her lies were exposed for everyone to see. In the end, Peggy had no choice but to take a plea deal. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison for her crimes. On top of that, she was ordered to pay back a total of $5.7 million to the athletes she had stolen from, a daunting amount that would follow her for the rest of her life. The high life Peggy had once enjoyed was gone, and now she was facing the consequences of her actions.